Yeah, waste in a lot of ways. Waste of humans, waste of creation, waste of energy. I know, and one thing just in talking with Kind over the years in the third district related to climate change and getting off fossil fuels is that we have a lot of rural co-ops serving our communities in the third district of Wisconsin here, and that's I think, and they're using fossil fuels, and there's a lot of worry among them if there's a carbon fee or carbon tax. They have been not wanting that because they don't want to have to raise the rates for the people living in rural areas and who also tend to be people not with a whole lot of income to begin with, especially our farmers that are doing so bad. How do you sell this to the rural co-ops? And
the co-ops are doing their best to resist the ever spreading influence of mega agriculture corporation, get bigger or get out attitudes, and that attitude of get bigger or get out creates systems that are very tight so that they have very little flexibility, and they end up with vertical integration from to the chicken to the retailer. It's all the system, all of the looseness is taken out of the system in order to maximize the profits and the goal to have the lowest price. That whole concept, that whole approach to running our economy falls short for what we need as human beings. We need to have the looseness in the system because we never know where the next threats are going to come. If you have a very tight economic system, a delivery system like that, a supply system, it falls apart, and then you have too big to fail circumstances that happen. Instead, we need to create cellular, local economies so that our farmers that are living within 20, 30, within the driftless region, they're the ones that are supplying the source of nutrition that we have on our tables. This is the type of farming that, we're familiar with from 100 years ago. And we had, multitudes of individual family farms that took care of the land, took care of their livestock, and provided nutritious sources of nutrition for all of us in our homes. We don't have to ship it from halfway around the world, which is very wasteful, but it offers another opportunity to make some money. We could have a much more safe, so to speak, from production if we would create local sourcing for our nutrition. You say, well, it's not going to get you the lowest price, in the food market. And you say, you know what? There are other things. There's externalities to the cost of what we have to put on our table. And if those externalities, we're stripping them away for the sake of having the lowest price. And unfortunately, we end up paying that cost, which means we end up with, cows by the thousands living their full life standing in a little stall. Our land becomes, wasted. Elements are all wasted. We lose the community of people living in rural areas because it's just become one vast desert of production. And is this the place we want to live? But we can cut that off. We can cut that externality, that cost, because we can make a system that doesn't include that cost, but we're still going to pay the price in order to have a piece of chicken that's 15 cents a pound cheaper than if we got it free range. Maybe it's more than that. But the free range chicken it has a whole world of goodness associated with it that we lose when it's artificially fattened and antibiotic infused meat.
yes, yeah, and like you say, we end up paying for it in other ways, either having to clean up the water from all the fertilizer or manure runoff or whatever is going in there, or other health issues.
So getting back to that question about the price of fuel going up, I just if it's just a matter of getting the lowest price, and that's always sort of the end that justifies any means, well, we're doomed. We have to move away from that concept that it has to be the lowest price. I was driving up here, and what did I see on the side of a truck? Lower prices and better life or something. I said, I don't think they fit. You know, it's the lowest price for something pushes us into a model of an economy that strips us of our humanity in order to get to that lowest price.
And we've seen some of this in this pandemic that we're in, with some of the big meat processors being shut down because their workers are all sick, or whatever. And I'm thinking, you know, like Woodman's rationing meat, shortages of meat, or Festival or other stores in town, but our Just Local Food Co-op, which is sourcing from all local people,
no problem.
they've had no problem.
And that's
no shortage.
That's a perfect example of what I was trying to explain. You know, it gets a little bit theoretical, but you know, when you have a vertical supply chain that is so tightly controlled that every little slack in the system has been weeded away in order to have it from, you know, the hoof to the table, completely tightly run, you get a stress come from the outside like a pandemic. It shuts down a packing house and the whole thing falls apart. 50 years ago, we had hundreds of packing houses. Now I think we have 2 or 3 big companies that run 80%, and they do it in these big, you know, factory operations, and they just broke. When you had unfortunately not broke enough, because people are still being expected to go into unsafe circumstances to work and prepare meat for you and me to eat, which makes me feel like I don't want to. It's like my story earlier about monkey meat. It's like I've lost my appetite, thinking where it came from.
Yeah.
And I say, you know, somebody had to threaten their lives to prepare this food.
Yeah, what's the morality of eating meat processed by people not getting paid a living wage, working in dangerous conditions, having to carve up 60 chickens a minute,
Yeah.
you know, cutting themselves up with knives because they're forced to go so fast. And yeah, or to have a meat shortage because some processor in Nebraska shut down.
Yeah.
Whereas Just Local is like, well, we better all our stuff come from 20 miles away.
Right,
So
and if
we're-
it's all these little modular supply system, you know, you get a stress and it can take it, you know, because it's got slack to be able to adapt. It's not so hardwired that it can't change and adapt to the new stresses coming in.
Yeah. There's it's interesting the way the health and the climate, and especially for Wisconsin, the farming, of course, totally environment based. It's just so important. And